Hello everyone and welcome to another of Qwizical's Guides 2 with me Qwizical, and today we will be looking at when to play the S. So why is it important that we learn when to play the S? Well, if you're not sat with a bonus and you're kind of confused as to whether you need to play your S, whether you want to, maybe toss it for a handful of points, that you keep it. There's so much to think about sometimes that it can get a bit complicated. So hopefully this video will cover some aspects of when to play the S, and we'll sort it out. So here's an example that I have discovered on ISC. That me kind of going around clicking people's histories all the time. But anyway, here is an example rack. So we've got two S's on it. Now we have a couple of choices with this rack here. So we've got duplicate S's, and immediately we kind of want to split them up. I mean that's initially what you want to do with duplicates. Now the issue here is this Q as well. And of course we're not going to talk about the Q in this episode because this isn't an episode about Qs. It's really a difficult thing to know when to play the S's here. So something like chess here for 43 points. It's quite a lot of points when you consider where we are in the game, the pool, the board. 43 points is nothing to be sniffed at. Of course you're getting rid of both S's and you're keeping the Q. Okay, so what about something like highs? You get rid of one S, you score almost exactly the same points. The board is now considerably more open, but you're sat here with the case S. Now of course the rack is worse as a leave. The board is a lot more volatile, and you're still not dealing with the key issue, that's the Q. So what should you be considering when you're confronted with these S's? Well, firstly, I want you to consider how much you're scoring with these additional S's. So often you may be sat there with one S and you're thinking, okay, how many extra points is this S going to get me? So typically what you want to look at for an S is an extra point value of about 8. Generally, when you play an S and you don't need to, it scores about 8 more points. Now, of course, this is usually used as a guide for, one's just that are lower down in the divisions. Usually that's the kind of advice they're given. To say, we don't want you burning your S at every available opportunity, but we want you to think and consider when is the best opportunity to play the S. So here you could argue for both highs and chess. I think it's probably a minimal difference between the two. The one thing that I do like about chess is that there are no S openings once you've played chess. There is no S hooks really anywhere on this board. You've blocked yows. The S stops being useful on this board. And that is always something that you have to consider when you're playing your S. If it's not useful as a tile on the board, is it really worth keeping? Because if you're keeping it for the sake of keeping it and not keeping it for some kind of opening or potential threat, then it's quite a bad thing, and it's something that, maybe you'd consider playing your S a lot sooner than normal, because there's just no way the S is going to benefit you on this board. Now I'm going to show you guys a second example. If you'll bear with me, there will be a cut in the video, and I will be right back. Okay, so now we're back, and I've got with you a second example of a game with an S play that I think is quite interesting to think about. So on this rack we have one S. I say we, I wasn't in this game, but there's one S on the player's rack, and at this point You know, they've got some great scoring tiles here. They've got the H, the M, the P and the X. So here it's really important to consider whether it is in fact worth playing the S to score extra points, or whether it's alright to just not play the S, really. This board does have one S hook available, and that is this K row here. Early in the game and there aren't any S openings, it's really weird, but you know, sometimes the boards end up that way. But no doubt the board will be much more open later, and especially at this point in the game with 57 tiles left, it's not a bad thing to keep your S at this point. And a lot of these decisions are based on when the game is, what the tiles are left, what the board looks like, scores, everything. It can get really confusing to think about everything at once, and there really is so much to think about. And you can't really cover all the examples in one, hopefully short video. So you've got a couple of options here for your other tiles on your rack. So the highest non-scoring S play is Pixie for 33 points. And that's a pretty decent score. I mean, the leaves, yeah, but you know, it's a score and it keeps your S. But how much are you scoring by playing your S? So we know we're going to play here off of Zerf because there really is nowhere else for the S. So the kind of word we look to is 6th. That scores 47 points. That's 14 points more than it does just by keeping the S. 14 points more is so many more points for one turn. Now, of course, you may be thinking, well, 6th creates another S lane, and, you know, now I don't have my S to play in that lane. And you've always got to consider, like with any move, what it opens. And you're going to get triples back. And I'm really delving into other aspects of other videos at this point. But it's always important to remember that these videos are not unique. They're not separate from all the other videos in this series. It's important to remember that each video has ideas that are linked. And the more you consider all these linkages between the moves, the better your move should become. So now let's go on to the summary. Woo! Summary. Point number 1, how many S's do you have? This is kind of a basic, don't keep duplicates on your rack. If you do have duplicate S's, you're more likely to get rid of one. You really don't have to get rid of one for the standard 8 points more, or the suggested 8 points more. You can really dump it for a lot less when you're holding duplicates or triplicates. Point number 2, how much extra are you scoring by playing the S? Like I said, 8 points is the minimum that is suggested by players so that you're not essentially burning the S, but it's always good to weigh up how much you can score without it and how much you can score with it, compare the two moves and work out which one is the best, in your opinion. Point number 3, is the S useful on the board? If there aren't any S hooks available on the board at all, and there's nowhere for an S to even be remotely useful, don't keep it. Try and find the best score you can for it, and be done with it. That essentially means that you're going to have an extra tile on your rack to play with, because if you're keeping the S all the time, much like keeping a blank, you essentially get rid of one potential tile you can play your move with. And having an extra tile to make your move decisions on can be the difference between winning and losing the game. And point number 4, something that I haven't talked about yet, which I would personally label a kind of expert tip. So if you're interested in maybe expert tips, this is one. Penultimate S strategies. So often at times when you're getting closer to an endgame, you might be holding the penultimate S, the second to last S, unseen or unplayed at that point in the game. and you know, you've gone through all of the other points that I've suggested, and you've maybe realised, you know, there's no real risks on this board, I should play my S. But what if the scores are quite close, or you're ahead by like 30 points? And there's a really easy way for your opponent to open up the board to create a setup in a way that only an S goes after the setup, and it becomes really difficult to block, or you can't really block it to the extent that you would like. And this is where having this penultimate S unplayed comes in, because your opponent is way less likely to make setups knowing that you can block them, or knowing that you have the potential to block them. So let's say I was at the end of a game, I needed to make an opening to win, and I knew that I was holding the case S. I wouldn't be afraid of making the opening, because it would be so hard for you to block. You wouldn't be able to take it. You'd probably have to score less than 10 points to block it, and at that point in the game that's not really a good thing. But if you were holding that other S, you would then be able to take the opening that I had made for a lot more points, maybe even completely block the opening. And having that S can do so much in the mindset of your opponent, and it's something that maybe you won't initially think about, but it's always something to consider on top of all of these other points that I've mentioned. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you've learned something. I hope you will learn about S's more in future. And I will see you next time for more of Qwizical's Guides 2. Bye!